Hi, welcome to DB101, an overview. I'm Michelle Fassler, Vocational Services Team Leader at Places for People, and I'm also a Certified Benefits Specialist. In this webinar, we'll talk about using DB101 to motivate consumers towards productive and the most independent lives using the DB101 website. About using DB101 to support consumers to make plans to work and a plan to transition to self-sufficiency. To acquire comfort and ease navigating DB101, and to talk about using techniques to implement DB101 into everyday practices. DB101 in the beginning was entirely focused on Social Security benefits. It was to eliminate myths and confusion about Social Security, to initiate conversational knowledge about Social Security and benefits and work incentives, a tool to help service providers explain work incentives, and to promote employment for people who receive Social Security benefits. But now, DB101 is about culture change and empowering people to eliminate myths about the abilities of people with disabilities, to start conversations about the self-planned futures of people, a tool to help people with disabilities become self-sufficient, and it promotes independence for all people with disabilities on benefits or not. So DB101 is a great tool. It gives both consumers and staff tools and information on employment, health coverage, work incentives, and federal and state benefits. So you can plan ahead and learn how work and benefits go together. And we'll look at this website more later. So most people agree that benefits planning can be confusing. But DB101, or Missouri Disability Benefits 101, is a really user-friendly online tool that can help people work through some of this confusion. So it provides online tools and services. It can create, hopefully, reports that can be used in many ways. It can ease fears for people, empower people and their families, and assist in making informed decisions that will lead people to a more financially productive life. And this can be used from anywhere. People can use it at home, at the library. Since it's all online, people can do this on their own, with their case manager, with their payee, with anyone that is important to them. So DB101 is easy to navigate. If you've been on any benefit site, federal benefit site, Social Security, Medicaid, any of those, they can be kind of hard to find the things that you need. So DB101 is designed to have information in layers. So at the first layer, they'll have a little bit of information, and then as you click more, you can find more information as you need it, as much or as little. Very user-friendly work and benefits calculators, which we'll take a look at. Next steps, so access to local, state, and national resources as you need them, going to the right place to get the right information, and lots of easy-to-read articles about different benefits programs and definitions throughout the site. So it'll tell you about something that you might need, and then you can click on a box and it'll tell you more, tell you what that program is, so that people are not left wondering what it is that they're reading about. Like we said, it's also for people who are not receiving Social Security benefits. It'll explain eligibility requirements for Social Security. So if people are applying, wanting to apply, it'll explain that there. Links to the applications for Social Security and other programs, articles about significant life changes, tips for planning for the future, and resources for other programs besides Social Security. Like we said, it's more than just benefits. And here's some of those other programs besides Social Security that people can get help with on DB101. programs that support work, housing, education, asset building. Many programs we can find on there. And when we take a look at the website, we can take a little stroll through some of the things that we'll find. Here's just a screenshot of asset building, for example. So here we see some things quickly. So here we see young people in benefits getting a higher education, healthcare coverage, job supports. We have special needs trust, I have circled here, so that can be really important for expenses. Down here we have ABLE accounts. And you see in this one page, we see food stamps, no health net, IDAs, earned income tax credit. So just on one page, we see links to many things that can support people that are not Social Security, just on one page. So you see there's a lot of information here, and when we click on things, we'll see more. So DB101 can also be a really useful tool for staff. So there's information about housing, rental support programs, and home ownership, education. There's a lot of information about helping people plan an educational path, funding an educational path, and obviously employment. So facts and myths about who can work, and resources for helping people find and keep employment. So here's some examples of other things that people might want to go to. The Ticket to Work program, Ticket to Work Health Assurance, the Medicaid buy-in program in Missouri, Spend Down, which I know as an employment team leader and a benefits specialist, I get a lot of questions from staff about Spend Down and from our consumers as well, and asset and resource limits. Those are all explained in DB101. So there's two calculators in DB101. The first one is the Benefits and Work Calculator. This one is for people 18 to 64. The information is Missouri specific. Other states have their own DB101 site, but this is Missouri specific, so if someone was wanting to move to someplace else, they could see if that state had a DB101, but ours is Missouri specific. It will take about 20 to 30 minutes to complete. It is all anonymous. People don't put in their name or anything, or their Social Security number. They just put in the information that it asks. It is really important to gather as much accurate information as possible prior to completion. So if you are using this with people, it's helpful that you know the things that are going to be needed for it to take 20 to 30 minutes. If someone didn't know some of this information, it might take much longer. Here are the programs covered in the Benefits and Work Calculator. We have SSI, SSDI, CDB, Supplemental Aid to the Blind, Blind Pension, Food Stamps, Housing. It is important to note that it's mostly Section 8 programs, so SCLP and Shelter Plus Care. If you're using those calculations aren't in there, but if you know those programs, you can hopefully just tell people what those would do. Missouri Health Net, Missouri Health Net's Ticket to Work Health Assurance Program, Medicare, employer-sponsored health coverage, individual health coverage, and healthcare.gov, and earned income tax credit. Some important things to know is it is going to ask the rent amount. So hopefully people know their rent amount. Sometimes people only know parts of it in their housing program. So like I said, some of that is not on there. The trial work period. So sometimes people know they've used a certain number of months of trial work period. They don't know which specific months. You can call Social Security and ask about trial work periods. So if you're planning on doing this, you could call then. Or if you've already done a benefits planning query, a BPQY, those would be on there. Otherwise, it does ask for specific months. So if you don't know, you might have to just do the query or do this calculator without putting the trial work period in. The school and work calculator. This one is for people under 18, and it takes about 10 to 15 minutes to complete because it doesn't have quite as much information in there. And we're going to look at some sample cases now. Oh, actually, no, we're not. We're going to look at these sample ones that are already open. So DB101 does allow us to save cases in here. So this can be helpful if you have multiple people that you're helping. You can save their information in here and come back to it later if you want to change it. So you can see here I have a benefits and work for one person. I have a school and work for someone else. Obviously, you want to save those without names for people, identify those in a way. So here I have a benefits and work, and I have 3 different plans. So we'll go to that. When the internet agrees with me. So here you can see this will give us different information based on each one. You can see I have 3 different plans here, and I did that with different amounts. And I'm just going to look at Plan C because I'll be able to show you back here in information. So everybody gets a plan summary, and it will tell us, congratulations, in this plan you'll be better off. It's never going to tell somebody, sorry, you're going to have less money. It might give a neutral response and tell people to see a benefit specialist if it's not as exciting of a result. So you can see here it's going to give people notes that are pretty good right in the beginning, a snapshot of now, in 6 months, and 2 years. It'll talk about work, cash available, healthcare options, and then you would click on each of these to understand what each of those are, and some to-dos. One thing you can do is talk about or look at tax credits in a monthly average or a lump sum, which is different. So this would be people would be eligible for a earned income tax credit. The internet is going a little slow. So before, it showed a little bit different. Yeah, so you can do that differently for people. I won't wait for that to go through all that. You can show people if they do their earned income tax credit amount averaged out over 12 months, or if they do it as if they got their tax return and they got that in one sum, as though they got a larger tax return because they received a tax credit. I was able to use that as a selling point for someone recently because they were worried they were no longer going to get a circuit breaker or a property tax credit. And so when I showed him he was going to get a earned income tax credit, that satisfied him. So here's the information that you have to put in. So birth date, citizenship, pretty basic demographics, living situation, if you pay your fair share of food and rent, and if I'm in a housing program, have I done my trial work? You can see here I added some dates, what I think I want to work, and that's why you can do comparison plans, because maybe I want to work 24 hours and I'm going to make $15 an hour, or I'm going to work 24 hours and make $9 an hour to compare that. These might be some work expenses that I had because that would be different and that could change my situation. All of my unearned income, so I might have different things, my health care coverage, and then that gives me my results. So I think one of the really great tools of this is it shows us a timeline month by month, and this is where we can help people plan and look forward for their health insurance using their trial work months, and so doing extended period of eligibility and grace period for SSDI, and looking if they have possible cessation and if they're worried about those things. And then we can click through all of these, have very specific benefits of each of these kind of tabs here. This shows us monthly income and expenses, so we can look here of a comparison. I have 3 different plans in there. These were based on different monthly gross pays. You can see they're not that different, but what that would look like, what my total outcome would look like. This is a very nice chart that shows health insurance. So people that are more concerned about that, you can go through there. And then next steps, which tells us to get a BPQY if we haven't done that, see a benefit specialist, talk to your HR person. We also have you can make a PDF of this report, and we'll talk about that in a moment, and go through all of that. And here you can see here all these reports. Once you get in here, there's glossaries and everything. So that's a quick overview of that report. So the report is 19 pages long when you do the PDF, and it has text and charts, and it's very visual, so it can be very good for a lot of people. For some people, you might want to break it down to the most useful parts, because some people may not want a 19-page report. And it does not have in there instructions for reporting income, so you want to add those for people if you are just giving them the report. We want to give copies to a family member, payee, case manager, whoever. If you're doing it, give it to the appropriate people. If you're doing this, and you might need to give it to your employment specialist or benefit specialist at your agency. If you're a case manager doing it, it can be helpful to them. And don't forget that as you're going through these reports with people, if it's the PDF report or you're doing this online, that we need to continually be assessing people's financial capability and well-being if it hasn't been formally assessed. Some agencies have very formal ways of doing this, but we need to really be making sure that people do understand this. Some people will agree and say, yeah, okay, but we need to make sure this is still, even though it is a user-friendly tool and it is using plain language, it's still some pretty complex information, and we need to make sure that people really do understand what is being told to them. When we looked at that timeline going forward 2 years, the one that we looked at was talking about your extended period of eligibility is ending and we are in grace period, and if we just say, okay, so look, here's 2 years out, if we're telling someone about 2 years from now and your benefits, that may or may not really be registering. So we need to make sure that that is. So here was just what we just looked at. This is just the report. So we've already seen that. And this was what I was showing you. This is more closely about the earned income tax credit, where you can show people that flat line of their earned income tax credit averaged over 12 months, or this nice spike here of when they get a tax return. So just one thing to look at there. So this is about reporting your wages. That is there in the next steps. That is not on the PDF report. So you might want to kind of have that saved, and you can just copy and paste it onto something for your PDF report. So DB101 also is really good about having some of these articles and things to help people dispel the myths of disability and working with benefits and those sort of things. So there's some 7 myths on there. I can't work because of my disability, and that. So it has just some really great things that you can go and look at those, which are great. I will lose my SSDI benefits, and we'll kind of talk some of those. I think one that we often forget about is, there's extra costs associated with working. Social Security will decide I'm not disabled anymore. And these are all myths, and we have answers to those. And if you're someone that doesn't know the answers to those, now we have a tool for this in DB101. Because it's okay to say, I don't know, let's go to this resource and look. So here's some myth-busting talking points. I would work, but I cannot lose my health care. You can always say, it's not, this really isn't an issue. There's actually a lot of work incentives for health care. So, there are ways to keep your health care when you work. I get why you think that, though. Sometimes even the case handlers at Social Security or Medicaid get confused about that. So really for health care, there are a lot of work incentives. People are going to keep their Medicare for many years, even if they work themselves off of SSDI. And Medicaid, the threshold for keeping your Medicaid is very high. It's just that the information is not good about it. So we want to make sure that we help people find out more information about that. I'm going to lose my benefits if I work, which we know that people think this, and sometimes it's happened, and it's happened to their friend or happened to someone they met on the bus, or people have told them that. So we want to say, a lot of people think that, but it really doesn't always work that way. There's a lot of things in place to help people do that, and usually you are much better off financially, so let's look into that more. So having a good response for those things, and then using the DB101 tool to help people learn more about that. I'm feeling better now, but what if my disability worsens after a while? I'm not working and losing that help because I may need it again. So of course, this is in the minds of people. But just because people are working does not mean you lose a connection to Social Security. So people get benefits and then work, and they're allowed several years and sometimes longer when they can go in and out of the system. So people need to understand the program, which Social Security program they're receiving benefits from, and the rules of that. So we want to give people the right information. This is what DB101 is about, giving people the right information so they can make an informed decision to plan to go back to work. Well, it took me forever to get SSDI. Why would I change anything now? So yes, that eligibility process can take a long time and be really stressful. But again, like we said in that last talking point, once you're in that system, there's a system set up to encourage people to work. So people who get benefits, they're allowed several years to really try and go in and out of that system. So I want to make sure people understand that. Okay, myth. I can't work, I am disabled, or I can't work, I get disability. So one of the most important things, besides learning how to use the DB101 website and what's available on there and using that calculator, I hope that learning that work and disability are not mutually exclusive is a takeaway from this webinar. There are plenty of people with disabilities who work. They're not all in the public mental health system. People with, a mental health diagnosis, there's a lot of people that work with disabilities. A lot of people that identify themselves as having a disability and work. It doesn't mean you can't work. There's a whole set of rules and a system set up to support people with disabilities working if they need that support. We need to help people identify which supports they need and then how they can work and keep working and give them that information. And that's what DB101 is all about. So that's all that we have on DB101. So I hope you can help people use the tool to get on their path towards financial independence.